some other things that you learn about yourself as you study abroad is that it becomes a catalyst for increased maturity. And that is pretty much for everyone. I know I'm an only child, so I'm pretty independent to start with. But going abroad, I had to learn a whole new transportation system. I had to learn how to be extroverted. And it doesn't seem like it, but it's not my thing. I had to learn to talk to people across different cultures and just figure out like, oh my gosh, I can't do this completely alone. How do I ask for directions? How do I ask questions that I would normally just Google myself or figure out, right? But in becoming more mature and gaining that self-efficiency, you also gain self-confidence. Coming back, I gained self-efficacy. So I learned and realized that I put my mind to this goal. I accomplished it completely alone. My parents didn't give me a dime to study abroad. And I did it in like 90 days. Like my study abroad program was 88 days long. And here I am back at my university, a changed woman. Like I wrote a blog, I did journaling, I did all these different things. And so I was reflecting on who I wanted to be, who I was when I started, and who I will continue to grow into. And so I realized that if I could study abroad for free twice, I could pretty much accomplish anything that I desired for myself. And so I'm still seeing that being proven today. Like I just got my first car ever a couple like last November after saving the entire first year at my job. Like I think I saved over $10,000 and I was able to get this car and it's the exact car that I wanted, everything that I wanted for a car. Some other benefits that you get is that you get the skill sets that you need that influence your career path. That is true for me. I 100% want to work abroad. I work for an international company that actually has a bunch of offices across the world. Maybe one day they'll send me to another office, maybe they won't. But I'm constantly like, I think of this as part of my career. It's not something I do that I get paid for, but helping and mentoring young women and young people across all different walks in their university or educational life to study abroad has been so important to me. It actually was something that it was the topic of my honors thesis when I graduated with my bachelor's, to the point where I helped make some lasting changes for my university. And so now we have an orientation, like a just for Black students, and helping them learn what could happen to them as they go abroad. And it's not all negative, but it helps to build a skill set on how do you deal with racial discrimination in a foreign country, or how do you navigate weird or awkward questions when, hey, can I touch your hair? Or people just start touching your skin out of nowhere. How do you navigate those experiences? And so that's still a program that is happening today, even though I've been gone from the university for like 3 years. And then the last one is that studying abroad influences subsequent educational experiences. Like I said, I have my master's in international business. And so I love learning about what hosting business is like in a different country. And so it definitely impacts like all different areas as long as you allow it to. And again, you have to be open to these experiences because there are some people who go abroad and they don't care. They're just there to have fun and drink their guts away because the drinking age is different and they don't care about making friends with other people on a program or making a friend in a foreign country. They don't care about the local culture. They just want to say that they did a thing. And so when you have that mindset, it's a little bit trickier to get all of these benefits. And so, of course, we got to talk about your employment and career development. We kind of touched on it with the last couple of points, but most employers are looking for the skills that you will gain from studying abroad. It says 92%. I know in my job interviews, we spent a lot of time discussing what I learned from studying abroad because most people don't study abroad. I believe it was about less than 14% of American students study abroad. And so that is not a very high number at all. And so when you study abroad, it becomes something that helps distinguish you and distinguish your resume. And especially in these hard economic times and this job market, it becomes increasingly important to find different ways to help improve yourself and improve your standing across thousands of candidates who have other distinguishing qualities as well, and sometimes the same skills and experiences. So 64% of employers think of international experience as being important for recruitment. Now in this business world, most corporations are stationed in multiple countries. And so it becomes easier to work with employees who are open to different cultures, working with teammates who work in India or work in Costa Rica or work in, might be Texas, but they might be someone from a completely different country working in Texas. And so being able to engage with someone and not show negative feelings towards someone being different from you becomes increasingly important. And also, it gives you the opportunity to work in a different office if your company allows it. And then the last one we have here is that 64% of employers say graduates with international backgrounds are given greater professional responsibility. And so that can be true depending on what career you're going into, because if you can prove yourself abroad, you can more than definitely prove yourself in your company. And so now we get to the more fun part. I know that was my like spiel on trying to convince you to go abroad and how beneficial it is, but if you didn't know, now you know there are thousands of study abroad programs. There's hundreds of countries, like 198. And so there's a bunch of different programs and many for the same country. So there's a couple different categories of study abroad programs. So you have university sponsored, which basically means your university is going to do all of the program. So they are going to help you put together all of the classes, figure out what classes you need to take. They're going to be the ones hosting the classes abroad. So you'll either have like a professor go with you to the country and then teach you and do the class with you, or you might have affiliated universities and university programs that will have their teachers lecture you. You will just pretty much do everything in-house in your university, which is what I did for my UF and London program. So all I had to do was pay my program fees and everything else was figured out for me. I got to select my classes, but I didn't have to select my housing. I just gave a like, hey, I want my own bedroom, and they figured everything out for me. Versus a university, an exchange program, which is also hosted through your university, but it's kind of a partnership with a foreign university. And that's what I did when I studied abroad in Maastricht. And it's kind of pretty similar to what you can think of when you saw those movies when you were younger about doing the exchange. And so I was the only person from my university for that semester that went to the Netherlands. And so they sent one student from the Netherlands to Florida to go study at my university. I think I connected with the guy like one time, but we never spoke again because we never saw each other, right? We were like switching places with each other. And so that's where an exchange program is, where you take your classes directly through the university. And so you pretty much you have your advisor to help guide you, but you're pretty much doing it independently. So if you want to really test yourself, do an exchange program. And exchange programs tend to be the ones where you have to know the language, but that also depends on if you're going to be taking classes abroad in that foreign language, or if you're going to be taking classes to learn the language. Again, when I went to the Netherlands, I took all my classes in English because that was the common language for everyone studying at the university. We have third party programs, which is basically like you're not going to your university or a university at all. It tends to be like a semester at sea. And if you're interested in to learn more about that, you're basically on this massive ship touring different countries in the world for like 6 months, and you get to touch down and like be part of the local culture, take some classes, like take day classes at the local in the local country, in the actual country, and then you come back on the ship and then you take more of your classes on the actual cruise. But is it a cruise? So third party programs tend to be a little bit more tricky to navigate because the semesters or the start times and the end times of the programs don't specifically align with your university. So that's where it becomes just a little bit more attention and research that you have to pour into. You can also work or intern abroad, which is what I did, but my program was university sponsored because I did two at one time. Some people tend to do this in the summers or after they graduate, because then you just spend all your time like learning what it's like to work in an actual business. This can be a little bit trickier for some people because you're again not really going with students of your program or of your college. So you're kind of solo trying to navigate what it's like to work in a foreign country and figure out what the workplace nuances are, as well as the cultural nuances. And then we have direct enrollment, which is pretty bold, but it's where you literally go and try and get your degree or a degree program at a foreign university. I know quite a few people that have done this, and this is kind of like an exchange program, except they're not sending someone from that university to your university. You're pretty much just going there for a semester or two or the entire degree, and you're completely alone. And so you have to figure out the course equivalents. You have to figure out, is the class going to be in English? Is this going to count for my degree? So I typically don't recommend direct enrollment unless you're really ambitious and you have a specific university, specific country that you want to go to, and you have done that research on your own. So as I've said multiple times, do not be afraid of that language requirement. Some programs have it, some programs don't. And so I chose programs that spoke English because I was not going to go through all of this and be alone on my own for the first time in a foreign country. There's a lot of different lengths of study abroad programs. So you don't have to go abroad for your full degree. You don't even have to go abroad for a full 6 months or a full year. There are some programs, and my university hosted one that was called African Americans in Paris. And that was a week in Paris where you literally went around in Paris and learned about Black culture, about the different cultural groups that set up camp in Paris, and how like Black culture super influences French culture, and people don't even think about it. And so there's different ways to study abroad. You don't have to think or stick with what everyone else is doing. You can choose a program that suits you. And that's the whole point. You don't want to get into a program that doesn't really suit your major or your aspirations, because then it becomes something that becomes some that you don't really want to do. You know, it's like you're there and you're like, I don't want to take calculus here. I'm not even a business major. I'm not a math major. Why am I taking calculus and I don't even need it to graduate? So you don't really want to waste your credits, because that's how you end up extending your graduation. And then you might roll over into excess credits. And that's something that you learn more about when you're in college. So yeah, you can also take credits for your major, your minor, your certificate, even upper level division courses as well. And so I pretty much did all of that except a certificate. I took classes for my electives. And so one of the classes I took was in supply chain management. I thought I was going to own a business. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do my entrepreneurship class abroad, which is my minor. And I'm going to learn about what it's like to make a flower company in the Netherlands, because they were like the hub of flowers for Europe as well as London. But there's so many opportunities for you. It's just about choosing the right one. So that's where researching comes in and knowing some of the top programs. And so on the screen, we have the top 10 US destinations for US students. And so 32% of students from the United States tend to go to the United Kingdom, Italy, and Spain. And that has been that way for years, and I don't see it changing. It's often easiest for Americans to study abroad in Europe because we have so many different trade deals with them, as well as there's a lot of Americans there. And so it's just easiest because they also speak a lot of English. And so some of the other top countries are France, Germany, Ireland. We also have China, Japan, Australia, and Costa Rica. Some of the other countries that are not listed here that are actually pretty popular would be Brazil. We have Canada, we have South Africa, Kenya. We also have Nigeria, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, New Zealand as well. And the list continues and continues. So there's pretty much a study abroad program in almost every country. There are some countries that are restricted due to their own laws and their own governments, as well as just not really having the best relationship with the United States. So you won't really see those countries, and you shouldn't want to go to those countries anyways until you learn more about how like cultural nuances and you actually have more training. But here are just some of the destinations that you can choose. You don't have to pick these. These are just some of the places where you're more often to see another foreign exchange student from the United States. So now let's talk about money, because you can't study abroad without having a little bit of cash. Some of the main scholarships that I tend to recommend for students is the Gilman. And so this is government sponsored. And so they can give you anywhere between $1,000 to $3,000 a semester. I got $3,000 for my summer semester. I will also provide a QR code where you can get a link of various scholarships. So pretty much everything that was listed here. And then you can click on it to learn more about what we have. Fund for education abroad. I learned about this scholarship actually when I was going to London, because I they sent me an email 10 days before their deadline saying, "Hi, we extended our deadline. Please apply." And for that scholarship, you do have to run a blog. So you have to post at least a couple times while you're on your study abroad program, depending on the duration. And it just helps you reflect on your experience. Like running the blog is not that difficult. You can either choose to do it as video logs, so blogs, or an actual blog, but writing and keeping your memories in a place is kind of like a sacred experience because you're allowing yourself to pour out what you have received and reflect on it and redigest it and figure out like, oh my gosh, I experienced this. What else can I learn from this experience? The good, the bad, the ugly, and the really beautiful. Some of the other common ones that you should know about is that Pell Grant, Florida Prepaid, and Bright Futures can all apply and be used for study abroad, and that does not depend on the semester. The Pell Grant and Bright Future, well, Pell Grant for the summer might waiver. I know a few years ago when I joined college, they had decided to give that $300 stipend, and that I don't know if they revoked it yet or anything. But you can also save a lot of your disbursements or excess money from your scholarships to use and save up for your first studying abroad, which is what I did. Another scholarship that is not well known is DIWC, and this is a scholarship that I actually found through LinkedIn way after I studied abroad. It's hosted by a Black woman, and she basically studied abroad, and she helps raise this fund to help other young women of color, Asian, Black, Hispanic, and etc. study abroad. And so you're getting a fund, and you do have to write an essay, but this is a super cool scholarship where you get to learn more about other people's experiences and stories and actively network with other women of color. And then, so some of the others are like Diversity Abroad, which this is a like national website that some of those like scholarships, like, oh, Black women abroad might give. And so those can be a little bit trickier to get, like the national scholarships, because you're competing with the entirety of the USA. But if your university provides scholarships, and especially your specific program, college, or department, go for those scholarships because the pool is so much smaller than a national scholarship. Some more scholarships that we have, and these are like, these can also be applied towards post-grad as well. So we have the David L. Boren, and so that's for a graduate student if you want to study abroad. We have Fulbright. There are a lot of people who do Fulbright, and so this basically, they pay for you to go abroad and teach, study, or do some research. And so your applications do have to apply to a specific country because you're working with their program. We also have Thomas R. Picker's Graduate Foreign Affairs Fellowship. And so you'll be working for the Department of State Foreign Affairs while you're abroad. And so we also have Rotary World Peace. And so that helps you fund your master's degree or a professional development certificate at one of the centers across the world. And so that's for peace and conflict resolution. And then Thomas J. Watson. So this is a year-long grant that helps help you study abroad at one of the participating institutions. So they have about 50. And then we have the Samuel Huntington Public Service Award. So that's about a $15,000 stipend for a graduating college senior to do a year of public service anywhere in the world. And so there is ample money out there. They will pay you to go abroad. There are some programs that will literally pay your way there. And so now we're gonna finish up before we get to the Q&A on just me sharing about why I'm so passionate about studying abroad. And it's because, like I said earlier, studying abroad changed my life. Going into UF, I struggled with figuring out my niche or niche, and that's the unique space that you fit and service. So I didn't really have any friends when I was at UF when I started off, like the first year, because all the people that I went to university with, which was just like 3 other people who went to UF with me, who went to my high school and went to my university, we were all in different majors, and so we didn't really see each other. And so it became difficult as an introvert to figure out, like, what purpose do I add to this university, to this world, to a future career? I don't know. But in studying abroad, because I knew I wanted to study abroad, I challenged myself by finding new interests. There are so many hobbies that I do now that I would have never done if I did not study abroad, because I pushed myself to try something new. I'm an only child, and I don't really talk to any of my cousins, so like I'm learning how to like navigate relationships with people, learning how to build relationships, long-term relationships with people. And so learning how to communicate yourself, how to tell your story. Studying abroad helps you learn how to do that because you just want to share all your pictures and everything that you did while you're abroad. So you continually learn how to refine those juicy details and how to tell it in ways that are engaging to the other party. And so I learned had to also develop a gratitude mindset because I really had to push myself. Like I remember crying many days about, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for this program? But with each day that I was there, I couldn't say that I hated it. I could say that, yeah, like my mental health issues were still very present, and I didn't know that at the time. But I love it. Like every day of my life, I think about how I studied abroad in London and in the Netherlands because it showed me that there's a world of possibility and opportunity out there. You just have to want it and actively build that network and those connections to get it. And so I learned how to network. I have friends in pretty much every country in the world at this point, or the majority of them, because I studied abroad. I have this one friend who's currently in Australia. She was born there, and her parents are from Kenya. And I think about her. I love her. She was one of my saving graces out in Maastricht. She was another Black girl, and so I was like, oh, there's someone who gets it, like the hair thing. Like I just it's difficult to do my hair. But there's just so many benefits that you can gain from studying abroad, and I just think that it's a worthwhile experience. I met all these cool people because I studied abroad. And so I went to all these different countries. And the left on the right, I that's me in Amsterdam, like 6 months or 8 months before I even went to the Netherlands to study abroad. On the left side, we have left top. I That's me and my best friend outside of the Louvre in Paris, and she takes up like half of these photos because she is my best friend. I became friends with her because of this program because we were the only two Black people on our program, and we knew what it was like to be ostracized by our fellow US students. And so we just got closer together because we had similar interests. We just wanted to do some very similar things. And to this day, we're still best friends. Like, I'm actually going to be leaving Tampa tomorrow to go see her in Jacksonville and spend the weekend with her. So you learn more about yourself, you learn more about people, and you learn to keep on pushing yourself and being resilient throughout difficult situations. So the photos are pretty, but the mindset that I have because I studied abroad is so much more beautiful. So now you can pull out your phones or you can take a screenshot of this QR code. I put together a handy dandy PDF of various sources and scholarships that you can use to help you out throughout your study abroad journey. And so I'll leave this on the screen for a little bit, and then maybe in a couple seconds I'll switch to our Q&A. But if you have any questions about anything study abroad, feel free to ask away in the time that we have. I am just so excited that you're even interested in learning more or learning more about sharing your experience to other people, but the floor is open.
Good job. Woo.
And you can also use the chat box as well. I will open it and be able to communicate with you. I could always ramble some more. Don't worry about it. I've been talking about this experience the last 4 years of my life.
Makayla, you did an amazing job. What great information all around. I mean, aside from financial information, aside from benefits of how to make friends, how to break barriers, when it comes to your ethnicity and where you come from. It was just really, really, really great all around. And I'm so happy that you were able to share this. Does anybody want to maybe you don't have a question, but maybe you have a comment?
I have a question. Hi, my name is Renee, and I'm so happy that you came and like explain about all the scholarships and your experience because I've been thinking for a while now, and let me exaggerate, a really long time on going abroad to study. So right now I'm a graduating senior, and I really didn't want to study abroad while doing my bachelor's degree, because I know myself, I just want to just get it over with and then have the time to like explore, because that's always been my thing. Like I don't want to have any other baggages while I'm trying to enjoy myself. So the the place that I have on my list is South Korea. I actually want to go to South Korea to study their language for a year, and having all of these scholarships will definitely help me. I will make sure to go on all of them. But also you mentioned about the blog, that some of the scholarships might ask you to do a blog here and there. I wanted to know, how did you get out of your comfort zone to be able to start creating those blogs? Because I know you said also that you're an introverted person who had to learn how to be extroverted. I am also like that. A lot of people say that I am not, based on how I act, but that's from years of me always trying to like prepare myself mentally to go out and do what I got to do. So I wanted to know, how did you prepare yourself to do the blog? Because I am also interested in doing like a mini blog series about my experience learning the language. So for after I finish my gap year, I could
Mhm.
have something to use to stand out when it's time for me to like apply to medical school.
Oh, yes. Okay. So for me, it is a little bit different for each person. I love to write. So even when I was younger, one of the first skills I learned, my mom reminded me of this. When I was like 11 months old, I was already scribbling on paper everywhere. I was like always wanted to write. And so I took a lot of writing classes when I was in school, not in college, because look, writing for college, we already have enough essays to write. But I am pretty comfortable with writing in an academic sense already. So being able to sit down with your emotions and just figure out what do you want to say and how do you best communicate what's inside your head and your heart can be tricky sometimes. But you just write. And so I often one of the things that I would do is I'd often start with a picture. So I'd be in an experience and I would take a picture of something and I would just wonder like, oh my gosh, how could I describe this to someone who has never seen this before? And so in my head right now, I'm picturing my time when I was at a flower garden show and I took a picture of a honeybee that was made out of flowers. How do you explain this experience to someone who doesn't care for flowers, doesn't care about what I was doing, but is still interested in London? So I talked about how there's so much events going on that you could always find something that you're interested in. I remember there was one night where I randomly took a floral arranging class. And so I was able to just go down, like take a tube for 15 minutes, take the train for 15 minutes and go write about that. And so I often share, like wrote in my blog about ways to find these different experiences and how to navigate transportation in a foreign country, apps that you can use, different things. And so you can make a blog either an informational place where you're just sharing advice and tips, or you can make it something that is just sharing about yourself. And so blogging is,
We lost you for a second.
and so I would often just talk about how I felt in the day, like how I felt on the train from Scotland. And I just wrote about like, oh, I really like rainy days, even though I don't really like being out in the rain because it helps me just sit down with my emotions and reflect on that. So if everyone starts somewhere, your blog doesn't have to get a million views. It doesn't even have to get one view. Sometimes I write with the intention of knowing that no one's going to ever read it. And so that allows you to be a little bit more candid. It's like writing in a journal. And so I also kept a travel journal as I was studying abroad, which helped me remember a lot of what I was doing every single day because there was a lot going on all the time. And so in doing that, I already had little snippets of things that I could use for my blog. And so I don't really blog as much now that I'm working full time because I'm not traveling as much. But it's still something that I think about time and time again. You don't have to do like a blog for every scholarship. It was just that one specific scholarship that I did. So thank you for asking. I'm so excited for you. I wanted to study abroad in South Korea, but I decided like I was trying to learn Korean for like over 10 years and it just wasn't sticking. So I was like, you know what? I will go and I'll just stay there for like 6 months or a year, like when I'm grown, when I got money to be spending, and then like I can do whatever I want. So I don't have to be on a specific program and like have to go to class or anything. But I'd love to connect with you and learn more about your experience when you get there.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you, Makayla. Does anybody else have a question? I see over here from Amia. It says, "Hi, I came in. If you don't mind, can you talk about making friends while studying abroad? I'm kind of shy, and I feel the experience it better when you meet people rather than stay to yourself."
Yes. So I'm I'm learning how to make friends now, even at 24, right? One of the things that I learned is the best way to make a friend is through an experience. So a joint experience together. So some people like when they go abroad, they often don't make friends with the people on their program, but they make friends with like the random granny from across the street or the person selling like bakeries and baguettes. So like as they go every morning before they go to class. And so the first step is you have to be open to another person. Sometimes we close ourselves off. And so that's like spending all your time on your phone, looking down, not really making eye contact. It's really intimidating to be in a new space and like still trying to seem cool, but you have to be willing to show who you are. And you're still discovering that with every day of your life, right? And so one of the ways that I do that is I go out and do active, like I do things. So right now I'm doing salsa dancing. And so I think we're going to be in week 5 and I like already have multiple people's numbers or Instagrams because when you're in it, everyone's nervous. When you sit down and think about it, everyone is uncomfortable. Everyone is trying to like seem cool. Everyone wants to be approached. Everyone wants to make friends and make connections because we crave that as people. And so just put yourself in outside of your comfort zone, which is but you can slowly do it. So one of the things that I did was I went to a floral arranging class because I love flowers and I wanted to be a florist at one point in time. And by doing that, I was like, hey, I asked my classmates, like, hey, would anyone want to go with me? And turns out like 3 girls wanted to go and with me, like just looking at all these different flowers. And so we ended up bonding throughout the semester, going to the London Eye, going to other floor like the Kew Gardens in London. And so sometimes you just have to step out on a foot and say, hey, does anyone want to do this with me? I often made like group chats for different things, like I'm a group chat for different classes, and I would like post helpful resources and just ask the question. The first thing to do is like ask and be willing to receive someone. Sometimes you're going to get rejected, and that's okay because sometimes you reject people. There have been days where I'm told best friend, like, I'm like, I don't want to do anything tonight. Bye. But allow yourself to be human and allow yourself to grow through the experience and start to ask people more about themselves and seek those deeper connections. And slowly you'll get there. So find a like if you're in Italy, go find a class where you can make pasta. Make friends with the instructor by asking questions like how long have you been doing this? What's the worst pasta you've ever made? What's your most controversial ingredient that you like to put in? Ask weird questions and be open to it.
That's awesome. Okay, I think we have one more thing from Myra. It says, I'm just gonna read them out loud. Makayla, you knocked it out of the park. So, so upbeat, high energy, informative, and comprehensive. Thank you for coming back. And Amia said, thank you. Your response was great. And I definitely feel more confident about going. Well, Makayla, I want to say thank you to you too. And I want to say thank you to all the alum who have joined. You guys are the heart and backbone of this program. And I am so happy to be able to provide speakers like Makayla that can help you, decide your next move, your next professional move. So good luck, Makayla. Is it okay if they reach out? And you put there you are. Yeah, you put your contact information here. So Makayla's contact information is there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to her. And if you're not following the Alumni Network Instagram, make sure that you do. Of course, you know I was going to do a plug. And we'll have more great things to come. Thank you again. You guys have an awesome afternoon. Enjoy your evening. Thanks for joining.
Bye, everyone. Please connect with me. I literally just love talking to people. I can give you so much more information. I will be your mentor for free. So have a good night.